Hi, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome. Today is Wednesday, August the 10th, 2022. We are at a work session of the Board of Trustees of Harlandale Independent School District. I am Norma Cavazos, School Board President, and thank you very much for joining us today. It is 6:15, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. I will do roll call of my colleagues present. Ms. Carrillo? Here. Ms. Limon? Here. Mr. Mancha? Present. Mr. Moreno?
Here, ma'am.
Ms. Ortiz?
Here.
I obviously am here. Mr. Luna sends his regrets. He will not be able to join us this evening. We do have a quorum. Mr. Soto, would you let us know who's here from Cabinet and Staff, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, Board of Trustees, HISD family. This evening, we have our Assistant Superintendent for Business, Mr. Richard Hernandez.
Here.
We have our Executive Director of Operations, Dr. Hinojosa.
Here.
We have our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, Ms. Casey.
Here.
We have our Executive Director of Human Resources, Dr. Salinas.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Soto. We also have Dr. Castleberry here with us tonight. Hi, Dr. Castleberry.
Hello, thank you.
Before we move on to agenda item 2, I would ask for all of us to take a moment of silence before we conduct our meeting. This would be for the Jaimes family and the Keller family. I want to say that we stand with you during this very, very difficult time in your family's life. And our prayers are with you all. And because we are a Harlandale family, we share in your grief. So please, let's allow a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to agenda item 2, public comment. No one signed up for public comment. Is that correct, Ms. Patty? Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to agenda item 3, the board will conduct a work session with a superintendent and staff. So we will move on now to item 4, correct? Mr. Soto?
Yes, Madam Chair, Board of Trustees. At this time, our annual contract is up for our LSG model, best practices. Ms. McAnally is here if y'all had any questions in regards to our LSG training.
Any questions or comments from my colleagues?
I would.
Okay, Ms. Ortiz, give me 1 second. We do have a new member of our family, Harlandale family, joining us. So Justin, if you all can bear with him and I, Ms. Ortiz is going to ask some questions. You ready, Justin? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Ortiz. Thank you.
I just wanted to make a comment that thank you very much for giving us an opportunity, giving us some guidance and leadership. And I appreciate that. I'm hoping that there will be a little bit of adjustment for the time that we consume acknowledging our students' achievements. So I know we get tagged on that, but I think it's really important that the kids know that we know that they're doing something, a little bit of time to do that. So, but thank you so much for all the guidance that you've provided, for always having an open door. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
This on there. Okay, just so you know what the services cover is the 2 hours of your board meeting, and whether you see me or not, I'm on, and then I calibrate the minutes with Ms. Ortiz and with Ms. Casey and with Ms. Patty for your monthly, we do a monthly report, but for your quarterly report, which is required. And in addition to that, something new that covers 3 hours. And just so you know that the pricing on your contract is far lower, we charge $900 for 3 hours of training. So if you do a contract with us, it's better. Those of you that call me, that is thrown into that 3 hours. So it doesn't take long for me to spend 3 hours. What is new that I didn't mention to Mr. Soto when we talked about the contract, TEA has just told us, both Dr. Castleberry and I, that there will be a monthly 1 hour meeting that we will have. So that's an additional 12 hours on the contract. So I would ask you to consider perhaps an additional $1,000 on this that would cover that. That would be an additional $83 a month. Our rate is far above that. Our rate, as I said, is $300 an hour. But because of contracting, if you would consider that, if you don't want to do that, you certainly don't have to do that. I will keep up with my hours, obviously, but it just means that, and I do calls to both Ms. Casey and to Ms. Suarez each month and emails, but quarterly, I do talk to your school board president so that we do your reporting correctly. And so there are some things ahead of us, and I'm going to report these to you real quickly. Some of the things besides the new meetings with TEA monthly. The other thing is every year, annually, there should be one student meeting, such as we had last year, where you come and talk to students, where you come and talk to parents. And if we go really big, a town hall where you talk to the community, where you as board members, not your superintendent, but you as board members talk about LSG and talk about that, focusing on student outcomes. And yes, student recognition, I appreciate that from Ms. Ortiz. Unfortunately, they don't give us any latitude on that. There just isn't. The focus on this is student academic achievement. So if you can start to think in any way of how to do that differently so that it doesn't take away from that focus of you focused on student achievement. The other thing is there is a desire that at some point you talk to students about LSG or including them in an LSG training. So if we were to do a 1 hour LSG training in this coming year, which we need to do so, guys, we need to have at least 1 hour to 90 minutes tune up. We used to do that about every other month, if you recall, on contract. And our goal for this year, believe it or not, is to move from 25% of your time on student outcomes, sometimes we're as low as 10%, up to 50%, that you're really asking questions of the staff around student achievement. And so if you need question help there, let your board president know, let your superintendent know. I'll formulate some questions that you can keep in front of you. So that's my job, to be here and help you and support you in any way that I can. Any questions about those services that we have ahead of us? There's still some things we can do to get points. That's not our total goal. Our goal is to be focused on your students. But I do commend you for the improvements that we've made in your quickness of your meetings, your regular meeting. And so I thank you for that and the other things that have been improved. Any questions? for me?
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. I heard it over here. Excuse me.
Yes,
Ms.
Mr.
Moreno.
Moreno.
Yeah, if I may, I guess just because that brought up some questions. First, Ms. McNally, if you can. So the additional hour is for our need, or is it based on what TA is required in terms of being a part of the LSG model?
Yes, it's because of conservatorship.
Okay,
That's-
can you go
that's-
more explicitly into detail? Like, I mean, it's just that you guys are having a one hour meeting. What does that mean in exact?
We meet with the head of monitoring and conservatorship, which is all new to me. I've not been involved in that before. And the goal is to share best practices in the state with other, from other districts, what they're doing. And then they basically do a little bit of question and answer about what are we doing? What are we proud of? What are our glows and grows, so to speak,
And
within the
that's you
district?
speaking on our behalf. We wouldn't be able to have someone represent us as well from the
Right,
board.
right. It's for the conservator and for the coach to grow us. And is my understanding. What do you think, Dr. Castleberry? We've only met once, so.
Well, I think there are some districts in the state where there is a conservator assigned and there is an LSG coach. And there is not regular communication between the two. And so this is an effort to ensure that that happens. That's not been the case here. Ms.
Right.
McNally and I have had regular contact ever since I've been in the district.
Right.
So we're talking more in terms of streaming what we've already been talking
Yes.
about, but others are getting to know each other. So it is a required meeting.
And that was just shared with us today.
Well, we just had our first meeting last
I mean, if you
Wednesday.
can recall, Ms. McNally, we've enlisted your support since prior to, this whole situation. So it's not necessarily that, it was required to have the LSG model with us as a conservator, but we took the initiative to have you guys
Yes,
support us.
correct, correct.
So, I mean, that's something that, obviously is, I think holds some clout as well, I would think. I guess the other couple of questions is really, I know what the model, there's some aspects of it that we ourselves, feel that need to be
Yes.
revised. Not necessarily just the aspect that that my colleague, Miss Ortiz suggested,
Yes.
but, what is it that LSG is going to provide to us that can enhance our ability to continue to focus on student outcomes and student achievements? Because more or less it's still the same situation in terms of what it's being presented, or can you elaborate a little bit on
Yes,
that?
it's going to be academic, sir. It's academic achievement.
No, but I know, but that's been
Yes.
the consistency with us as well in terms of how we've been trained. But I know at some points there's some things that are modified. Are there any things that are new other than that 1 hour meeting with TA that is going to be able to provide us some significant, resources or ideas or insight or strategies or techniques?
As far as changing to allowing for other kinds of recognition, no, sir. And we've
I'm
talked
not
to them
talking
about, you're
about
not
that.
talking recognition.
I'm just talking in general, like just to make us better.
What else has happened in the model in the last
Yeah,
5
because
years?
time we had meetings, it was like, oh, I already know that. Well, can you expand on that? Oh, well, we're still, there's still things that change every year. So is there anything that you can, share with
No,
us?
sir. No,
There hasn't
sir.
been any major revisions that are like, oh, wow,
No.
this is going to be really great for a school board.
No, sir.
Okay.
No. Has.
It's just
not.
like, as an education, we're always learning, we're always growing.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's why I was just kind of curious, because I know sometimes we feel we're kind of stuck within this script and it kind of muzzles us in certain ways. So I was just hoping that there is something that
Right.
maybe, was collaborated with, amongst TA and, the other groups that are involved in creating the LSG model, that we can continue to emphasize the importance of the student outcomes and student needs and student achievements.
And I guess for you as a goal is to move over on the rubric or on the LSG integrity model. That's a goal because it moves us closer to being focused on student achievement. And it also could put you on what they call the master leaderboard. So, not that we want to just chase numbers, that's not that, but that we really want to be able to tell the community, we've improved in this area as a board, or we've improved in this area as a board, those kinds of things. So no, sir, the model has not changed, has not. And the meeting was, ours was an introductory meeting. And so news to us as well. So we got a notice, you will meet this Wednesday, last Wednesday, and we did. So,
And then that's an additional cost to the district, correct?
so, well, it can be, or I have to charge it somewhere. So yes, sir. I can charge it to Region 20. I guess we would not have the meeting were you not probably in a conservatorship. That's correct. Yes, sir.
So we were just, before Dr. Castleberry joined us, we were just in our general LSG format. Then it would be something that, it's up to us to decide
Yes,
if we need to have that, but that's just based on the requirement that's been added to
Right. right.
to the conservatorship.
And that's why I said, if you choose to go with the 8,400, we'll go with the 8,400. That's certainly up to you, you guys. Any other questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Limon.
so this is an option. It's not going to go against us if we choose to
If you,
accept the hour for $1,000. It is an option for us,
it certainly is. It is, but I will still have to continue to go to those meetings.
of course.
I don't have an option. So
Yes,
nor does Dr. Castleberry. We're doing what we've been told to do. So,
but it won't go against us, would it?
No, it's.
No, ma'am.
It's just
No.
required. Okay,
No,
Just
ma'am.
want to make sure that.
No, it has nothing to do with the
Okay.
agency. The agency doesn't know about your contract, that if that's what you're asking. And do I report no, I do not. So, no, ma'am. Any other questions?
I do. And I know that every time, no, I'm not gonna say that every time. Sometimes, oh, I'm sorry, Justin, tell me, am I on? Okay, thank you. Sorry. I know that there are times when I am reporting our quarterly report
Right.
that some of my colleagues will say, I don't even understand why we're doing this. Why, what does it mean? Why are we still doing this every quarter? So could you remind us why we're doing a quarterly report based on that tracking system?
Well, it's called the integrity instrument. And that's tied to your integrity as a board, that you're adhering to those things. That's what it basically is. And more than that, everyone in your district is evaluated. And so you are saying, as a transparent group of elected officials, we are evaluating ourselves, and we're serious enough about it. We'll do it in public. And to me, that's where the strength of it comes, is if we're really authentically true to what we're saying and really looking at that and having, 3 meetings a month for 2 hours, that in itself, a lot of boards in the state can't claim. So those are things that have, it's an efficiency model. Remember, it's to be as efficient as possible, to get the public work done, to report it to the public, and to be transparent about it and be focused on student academic achievement. Although the other is fun. I love football, I love basketball, I love volleyball, I love all of that too. But it's supposed to be focused on academic achievement, because it's easier to spend more time over in the fun than it is sometimes in the academic achievement. And that's what the model is tied to. And doing it publicly is to actually sell it to the public, because they like the fun too. But we don't do school for the fun. We do school for the academic achievement. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. And I appreciate the friendly reminder as to why we're doing what we're doing and the outcome that should be
Right.
focused on. So thank
Right.
you. I do
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Right.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Madam Chair. I mean, I wasn't done when you were
Oh,
asking,
okay,
but thank
sorry.
you. Either way, I know you asked about the level of questioning to increase that to
Sure.
50%. Can you kind of explain that a little bit more specifically or explicitly in terms of, are you talking about within questions when we're having a board meeting, or are you talking about prior?
No, during a board meeting, absolutely. That's where the minutes are collected, that Ms. Ortiz tracks, that Ms. Casey, Ms. Patty, and I all track, is tied to how much time is spent talking about student achievement. And we track that, absolutely. And so that's moving from talking about it for 10 minutes and you have a 120-minute meeting. That's how we calibrate what percent is spent on it. And if that's the real business of school, that's why so much has been moved to consent agenda, as you know.
You can ask for an additional minute? Yes, sir.
Just real quick, if I may ask for an additional minute, it'll be less than that.
Yes, of course.
Right. And a lot of times when I'm talking, I'm always solving the dialogue, give context, right? So it's difficult when you're asking a question. But the formality or the last part of it is, the thing that's kind of irked me a little bit is when it comes to meetings, we have, special card meetings, and those automatically go against us. And that's something that I've kind of alluded to earlier. That's what I was referring to. What can we do about that to help us, be able to share a vision that, hey, we are going in the right direction? Because unfortunately, when we read those minutes, it's like zero every single time,
Right.
and it like dings us.
Sure. It's because there's not any focus on academic achievement. So there would have to be something, either a constraint, superintendent's constraint discussed, or there would have to be something around student achievement discussed. There's not another way around it. There just isn't. And let me see, how do I say this diplomatically? We talk about this as coaches with those who've set up the rubric, because we know, we feel your pain as well. Yes, sir, we certainly do. And so one of the ways around that is limiting the number of board meetings and limiting the length of time that each person dialogues, which, that's the purpose of you guys being willing to add that to your board operating procedure, that you're careful on that time. Does that make sense? Okay. All right.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank
right.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Moving on to agenda item 5, Ms. Casey.
Yes, Madam Chair and School Board. We are bringing and asking for board to approve a $45,000 expense. What it is our partnership with San Antonio Education Partnership. We have college advisors that are at the 2 high schools, McCollum and Harlandale, twice a week, and at STEM for half a day a week. And what the advisors do is they work with students. Students qualify based on their attendance and their GPA. They're also are required to complete some college planning courses at College Cafe, their FAFSA, college applications. And if they successfully complete it, if a student goes to community college, they're eligible for a $600 scholarship for 8 semesters. If they go to a public 4-year university, they are eligible for $850 a year for 8 semesters or a semester. And then if it's a private college, it's $1,500 a year. And we've been in partnership with San Antonio Education Partnership over 2 decades. We were one of the first districts to start it in the city. And it's $45,000. It's paid for by our college prep local funds that we already have budgeted.
Thank you, Ms. Casey. Any comments or questions for Ms. Casey on this agenda item? Ms. Ortiz?
Ms. Casey,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to find out, is there any measurement other than the kids being eligible? Like the number of hours that they're spent at they're going to the Career Center. Is that correct?
So
I would just like to see how many kids go, and of those kids, how many actually complete it.
okay.
And by the end of the year, I would assume that, because the burden is on each child, each student,
Yes.
and to apply for this. And I want to see if,
How many take advantage?
how many are taking advantage,
Okay.
because I just don't want to go in and pay 45,000, which I think is a good price.
Mhm.
But I want to see, I just don't want 5 students or 10 to,
Okay.
I want to see some action. We're held accountable. I want to see what benefits we're getting. How many students at the end of the year have these counselors
Mhm.
provided services to? And when I say services to, I mean the final product.
Okay,
So I mean, maybe that's asking too much.
no,
But-
they actually keep data for us as well. One
Yes,
of the
because
things-
they'll tell you how many kids go
Mhm.
in
Yes.
every week. I'm not looking for that, because I saw my boys go through this.
Mhm.
And they log in hours at that counseling service, but they got zero help in getting the San Antonio Education Partnership scholarship. It was mom over here doing everything.
Okay,
Okay, so I just would like,
Okay.
I didn't ask last year, and I really thought that I should have. So thank you.
thank you.
Ms. Cavazos, I think
Yes.
it would be important for us to know if that's a report that's readily available. If it's not, then the board would need to take action to make that a board request.
Thank you, Dr. Castleberry. Ms. Casey, is there a report that's generated, or is that something that is going to have to be created?
I can look at what we get from them each year, but typically all of our partners, we get an end of the year summary, and I can look, I can have the answer by Monday. for
Okay,
sure,
perfect.
Or even prior to that.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you, Dr. Castleberry. Any questions for Ms. Casey or comments on this particular agenda item?
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Moreno.
Just because I know it's been around since even before I graduated, it is something that is beneficial, and many of my friends did take advantage of it. It's perplexing to say if people didn't get it correctly done. When I was in school, it was pretty much they made you apply for everything. So unfortunately, I hope that wasn't the case with everybody, but I would hope that's the situation for most of our kids. But when we hear at the graduations, we hear this always, set at every student practically. And it's great because not every kid can utilize it because it's only based in San Antonio. But I think a large amount of them do take advantage of it. So I think 45,000 would be more than sufficient to support it. Especially because it's increased every year, because it used to be only like a 500 or 1,000, and then it's changed.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Casey, but I believe you're next also, aren't you?
Yes, we also have, a few months ago, we actually approved Renaissance. It's our universal screener and our adaptive program for Freckle. That's available to all students in all campuses. Renaissance has additional programs that are available to schools. And so certain campuses have opted into certain programs. One of them is called Lalio, and it's actually used for intervention. In the question and answers that I guess Ms. Juarez sent out, I indicated which campuses are actually using their campus, either local or federal funds to fund that, and how many have opted in. We have Mayan also, which is also supplemental reading materials. And we have campuses that are using their budgets for that as well. And then we have Accelerated Reader. Together, it costs $72,000. It's funded through all the various campuses, but because of that amount, we need board approval, and we're asking the board to approve that expense in that contract.
Thank you, Ms. Casey. Any questions or comments? Yes, Ms. Carrillo. Yes,
Madam
ma'am.
Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. It says the cost is 72 for the renewal of the student license will be funded through the campus, local and federal funds. So how much of this is going to be covered by federal funds?
I would have to look at each campus budget. I don't have that information with me, but because we have some campuses that are using just various funds. So federal funds in particular, I'd have to look at every campus.
I guess my question would be, how much of our campus funds will be used for this renewal? How's that?
Right, I don't have that information in
I
front
know,
of
I'm
me. I would
just-
have to look. It would just depend on how a campus budgeted for this. And so I would just have to go school by school to see what budget codes they're using.
Thank you, Ms. Casey.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on. Ms. Casey?
Okay, we also had an RFP for our professional development services. We offer quite a bit of professional development in all areas, from reading, math to STEM, fine arts. And what we do is we do a request for proposals. We ask for companies to submit proposals. We received, 46 vendors responded. We have scored those, and we're asking the board to approve our list of the ones that we basically have approved all of them after going through it, because we don't know which vendor we will use from here and through next year. We're looking at a 3-year approved, once it's board approved, and 1-year renewal dates. The funding will be used from district campuses or departments from the overall list of vendors that we have approved, if you approve them.
Any questions or comments? I actually do, if I may go. Justin, I'll wait for you. Thank you, sir. So, Ms. Casey, out of those 46 that you have available, they each have their own specialty?
Yes, yes. So we have some that were STEM, some that were fine arts. We have some that we currently use just for general overall professional development. So everyone had their area, I guess, of expertise. And it was open to anyone that provides any kind of professional development.
Okay, thank you so much. So you're gonna, as you see the need, you're going to pick who would be best to give that professional development.
That's
Which of those
correct.
vendors? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you. Any comments or questions for Ms. Casey on this particular agenda item? Okay, moving on. Is that you still, Ms. Casey? Oh, Mr. Hernandez, that's right. I'm sorry. Yes. But I bet you could do
Sure
the
you
job of
can.
Mr. Hernandez.
You
too.
can, Ms. Casey. I know you can. Madam Chair, members of the board, we're presenting the investment quarterly report for the month ended June 30th, 2022. On page 7, we provide a synopsis of whether there's increases or decreases in the various funds. Starting with our general fund, we had a decrease from last year's amount of investments by 9.6 million. And this is attributable to the foundation school payments that we get monthly. In that payment schedule, there's 2 months that the state does not send monies to the district, and it's the month of April and the month of August. In September, they do a settle up based on the actual attendance of the school district and how much they've paid throughout the year. So for this quarter, we had the April payment that was not received according to their payment schedule. Plus, we paid for the Apple devices, a major purchase of $1 million. We received subsequent reimbursement from the connectivity grant on July the 8th, which basically reimbursed the district. The debt service, there was an increase of about 549,000. That is mainly due to the property tax payments that we received from the end of March through June. In our settlement, in our facility assessment fund, basically those will be decreasing each quarter as we continue our progress on the construction for the settlement fund of 1.5 million. Construction, architect services, all related to phase 1 of the stadium and improvements. And then our facility assessment fund, which is another way of saying our maintenance tax notes funding, we had a decrease of 5.2 million. We've seen significant progress in our auditoriums. And so as that's occurring, then payment apps are being submitted. We also have, we've been doing work on the foundation. In fact, one of the items for this evening's agenda is the final payment regarding to the foundation repairs. The investments are spread over in major areas like the pool accounts, which comprise 49%, municipal bond investments, and commercial paper. The rates of investment on returns vary from 0.23% which is in our money markets, to 1.26%, which is mainly in our commercial paper. So, Madam Chair, this concludes the investment report.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Any questions or comments? I may have some emails coming your way, though.
Yes, ma'am.
I gotta process it again.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez, moving on to the next one. You are also on the next one, Mr. Hernandez.
Yes.
Agenda item 9.
Yes, ma'am. We recently had, or actually some months back, our accounting manager received a promotion at another school district, basically to be the chief financial officer of that district. And so we wished her well. We've since had a replacement for that position, Daniel Sakin, CPA. He's now our accounting manager. And so in order to continue with the internal controls, we are asking that he be approved as the investment officer for the district, along with myself.
Any comments or questions? I do. Is he new to our Harlandale family?
Yes, ma'am. He started in May.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Ms. Limon?
Yes, Madam Chair, how long is the other gentleman that left, Dimitri? How long was he with you?
Demetra was with us for about a year and a half.
Prior to that? No, this is
Oh.
new to us, having a district account manager?
No,
So
we've
we
always
knew-
had that position.
We knew
Right.
every year?
We've had an accounting manager position, except last year when Demetra started with us, or about a year and a half, at that time, she replaced the previous accounting manager, who was the investment officer at that time. So anytime we have a change in personnel in that position, they also serve as the investment officer for the district. So in order to provide the names and the signatures to all the different pool accounts, the investment firms that we use, we submit the new names that will be working as investment officers for the district.
Oh, welcome, Mr. Daniels.
Sakin, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Hernandez on agenda item 9? Okay, moving on to agenda item 10. Mr. Hernandez?
Yes, ma'am. Tonight, we're presenting the budget amendments for the general fund Basically, the three budget amendments are within either the campus allotment or the department allotment. And so beginning with the first budget amendment within the campus allotment of the Harlandale Alternative Center, they want to move or make a budget transfer between functions, which requires board approval in order to provide continued professional growth and restorative discipline practices. The second budget amendment is within a department allocation of the gifted and talented program. And again, by making that transfer between functions, they would be providing universal testing license and to provide continued education for the classroom teachers that are servicing mainly the GT program students. And then the last budget amendment, again, is within department allocation of the math department. And that's to ensure that funds are provided for instructional licenses that are called Seesaw to support the student achievement. So those are our three basic budget amendments that are within the allocations of each campus or department.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Any questions or comments? I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Justin, tell me when you're ready. Thank you, sir. Mr. Hernandez, are these budget amendments, do we do these every year for these particular programs?
Only when there's a need, if they have funds, they would, as they evaluated their budget, and if they put funds in a certain function and really needs to go to a different one, then because you're going between what we call a function, it needs board approval. That's specifically stated in the TEA regulations. So in most cases, they'll be evaluating their budgets. Primarily is they'll try to put in the correct function, but if not, we don't want to hold back what they're trying to accomplish at their campus. And so we tell them this is a step that needs to be taken. If you're going between functions, we got to bring it to the board.
Thank you so much. So it's basically just for clear and transparent purposes
Exactly.
of what a sum of money, why it's being moved from one function to
Exactly.
another,
Yes, ma'am.
just to cross our Ts and dot our Is.
Exactly.
Okay,
Well
perfect.
said. Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
so much. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Hernandez on this particular agenda item? No. Okay, moving on, Mr. Hernandez, to agenda item 11, sir.
Yes, ma'am. And in fact, the next three agenda items are related to the process that we go through each year in regards to the steps leading up towards the adoption of our tax rate. So in the first, the present agenda item is that we're asking the board to accept the certified appraisal roll. As the Bexar County Appraisal District goes through their assessments, they provide a final certified valued report to all school districts on July 25th. And so with that, that provides us a total amount that's appraised, that's assessed, and what's the taxable value that's going to be used in order to arrive at the appropriate adopted tax rate. And so that's the value that's used for the properties, and it's stated for as of January 1st, 2022. But basically that provides us the basis for determining what our tax rate is going to be. And what we also provide on page 17 of your board book is a comparison between last year's and this year's. And so again, this item is to have the board accept the certified appraisal roll as required under the Texas, the stat tax property code for the tax year 2022.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Hernandez. Any questions or comments? No? Okay, I have a question, if I may. This is not related to the bond that just passed.
No, ma'am.
Okay, not, so that's on another agenda item. Maybe not?
Correct. It is in the sense that the other agenda item is the adoption of the tax rate, because our tax rate is comprised of two components, one to run our regular operations, and the second component to what needs to be raised in order to make our bond payments. So that's how it would be related. in
Thank
that
you,
area.
thank you. I appreciate
Yes, ma'am.
the explanation. Thank you so much. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Hernandez on this particular agenda item? No? Okay, moving on, Mr. Hernandez, to agenda item 12, sir.
Yes, ma'am. So the next item is related to what the property tax code calls the no new revenue tax rate. And basically, it's an agenda item for the board to accept the no new revenue tax rate, which is basically a tax rate that's computed through a formula that's provided by the property tax code that would basically say that this is the tax rate that would be assessed in order to raise the same amount of money based on this year's current values of 2022 as compared to 2021. And the only problem with that is that, of course, our values go up in 2022, so then your tax rate would be lower. The only consequence, well, the consequence to school districts is that if you go with the lower tax rate, well, then the state lowers the amount of funding that they send to you. But it is a requirement under the property tax code that this be computed and provided as an agenda item for the board to accept that particular rate. So again, the consequences is that if you go with that lower tax rate, well, then school districts get less money in state aid, plus it'll generate less local revenue, which then again affects your budget. But again, this rate is compared then on our next agenda item to what our actual adopted tax rate should be in order for us to continue maximizing the amount of state monies that the district receives. So again, this is a requirement by the property tax code. We have to compute it and provide it to the public.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Making my little notes here.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Hernandez on this particular agenda item? No? Okay, Mr. Hernandez, moving on to agenda item 13.
Yes, ma'am. So this is a final item related to the whole process of the property tax code. So on page 18, you basically we're providing a narrative of the process of the adopted tax rate. So HB 3, the state legislature, one of the initiatives that they had was to limit the amount of property taxes collected to 2.5% per year. So what that does is basically forces school districts based on the property value that the state says you can only collect up to tax collections of 2.5%. And so the state provides a formula which they call a maximum compressed tax rate, or an MCR. So for our school district, that computed amount in order to ensure that we comply with that 2.5% tax collection was 0.8046. Now, one of the things that the district has in place is that we get tier 2 funding. And so that's what they call the enrichment rate. And basically, the school district is maximizing the amount of state funding that's out there for school districts to receive. So with that enrichment rate, you add that to that total amount. Basically, our tax rate for this school year is 0.9429. Now, when you compare that to last year, it was 0.9701. So it's gone down a little bit again, resulting from that compressed tax rate that the state computes for you. Now, the other component, as I mentioned earlier, is the part of the tax rate that we need to have in order to meet our debt obligations, our recent bond issue that we just had. So then the tax rate is going to be 0.50 cents per $100 evaluation for us to meet our debt obligation. Again, be reminded that those that are 65 and older, their levy is frozen whenever they put in the application for that to occur. Now, one of the new items that we're seeing that needs to be done this year as opposed to last year is 2 new specific items. And some of you who have been on the board, there is a specific motion that needs to be read in accordance with the property tax code. And so on that page 18, I've highlighted, and the specific motion needs to be read is that I move that the property tax rate increase by the adoption of the tax rate, which is 1.4429, which is effectively a 9.94% increase in the tax rate. And again, the way that is arrived at is recall that no new revenue tax rate that we were required to compute, even though it was lower. They take that and they compare that to what we actually have to approve in order to continue meeting maximizing our state funding and also meeting our debt obligations of 1.429. So the difference between those two is basically that's the 19.94% increase. So wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that. And so at the bottom of the transmittal, we provide what last year's tax rates are and what this year's tax rates are. And so again, as I mentioned earlier, the maintenance and operations tax rate decreased by 0.0272. But again, we had obligations that we issued, debt that we issued in order to do our construction. So our debt service rate went up from 0.43 to 0.50. So the net amount is an increase of 0.0422. Now, the second thing related to this particular adoption, or that goes hand in hand with this adoption of the tax rate, is there specific wording that needs to be in the ordinance for this that we've included. So if you look at page 19 of your board book, to the lower bottom in bold print, in a large size, larger size font as required by the property tax code, we need to make the statement that the tax rate will raise more taxes for the maintenance and operations than last year's tax rate, and will effectively be raised by 13.15%, and will raise the maintenance and operations on a $100,000 value, approximately actually decreasing by $27. The 13.15% increase is basically, again, going back to that no new revenue tax rate, computing what it represents on the M&O side, and then comparing it to what we just are proposing to adopt of the 0.94. So you get the percentage of that difference. And so again, these are all requirements that we need to make sure that are in our ordinance in order to stay compliant with the property tax code. And so again, when you're comparing the M&O, you're actually having a decrease. And so that's why you see a negative, basically a savings of $27.20, because you're only looking at the M&O side. So again, these are two items that I wanted to make sure we point out because they are new this year, and specific motion and then specific wording in the ordinance that we'll be covering on Monday's board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. That's a lot.
Yes, ma'am. It is. But again, following all the state rules, again, I believe it's probably their effort to be transparent, put as much information out there as possible. For the
Yes,
community.
Mr. Hernandez, thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. I've done a little bit of notes. I may have
Sure,
to
absolutely.
reach out to you and say, okay, give it to me one more time, please.
Yes.
But I do appreciate that you're giving us everything and anything that we need in order to understand it. And more so that you're providing this information so that we are clear and transparent with our community.
Yes, ma'am.
So I appreciate that. Any comments or questions for Mr. Hernandez on this particular agenda item?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Moreno.
I guess just
Give
'cause the-
Justin just a second. Justin, you ready? Thank you, Justin.
Okay, so the totality of the situation with the taxes, I mean, I guess in essence, it is a tax raise, right? Or what is it saying? Because I did see where the voted blacks as a tax rate does not increase the frozen levy amount for the 65 and over. Could you kind of, I know you might have peeked at it, but it was a lot of information. Is there something you could kind of just hone in on when it relates to that?
I'm sorry, sir.
Is there something you could hone in on where it says the tax rate does not increase the frozen levy, you know, where in the transmitter
Sure,
where you have the actual motion?
Yeah.
So
So
like in essence, I'm thinking it's just there is a tax increase that is going to be applied towards homeowners, right?
yes, and further down on that same transmittal, that's where we provided last year's tax rate and this year's tax rate. The increase is due to what we've been telling the public as we went through our bond process, that that part of the tax rate was going to increase from 0.43 to 0.50 cents. That's really the majority of the increase. But again, that increase was going to be 0.0694, but it's offset by the amount of the tax rate that we have for the operations of that being compressed. So that helped offset some of that. So really the net amount of the increase of the tax rate is going to be 0.0422. So, but again, going back to those on the frozen levy, for those that are 65 and over that have filed for that, their tax rate does not increase, or their tax levy does not increase.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Questions or comments for Mr. Hernandez on this particular agenda item? Nope. Okay, moving on to agenda item 14. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Hernandez, is that
Yes,
you?
yes,
Okay.
ma'am. In working with our Ms. Gallegos, our Director of Student Support Services, one of the items that we bring for that's related to our after-school program is an interlocal agreement with a nonprofit, the San Antonio Museum in Science and Technology. They provide hands-on STEM programs, supplies and materials for our esports program that we conduct at our 4 middle schools campuses. What that entails is they ensure that we secure a teacher at the program for 1 hour each day that will instruct these students as they participate in this type of esports. The students that participate are either enrolled in the LEAP program or the ACE program. And the cost is estimated at $84,000, which will be funded from the extended day program funding sources, which is our ACE grant and the amounts of monies that we set aside for our LEAP program.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Any questions or comments? I have a question, Mr. Hernandez. Ready, Justin? Okay, so providing a substitute teacher as needed to cover the lesson, it would be one of our teachers in one of those campuses, correct? In the middle school
Yes.
campuses.
Ms. Gallegos.
Hi, Ms. Gallegos.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, HISD Cabinet. To answer your question, no, it would be an actual sub from SAMSAT. So they have substitutes that they hire. So if for whatever reason, one of the instructors is out, they will immediately bring in a sub of their own organization.
Okay, thank you so much. I was wondering, I thought that was it, but I wanted some clarification. So
Yes.
thank you very much, Ms. Gallegos. I appreciate it. Anybody else? You have the next one as well, Ms. Gallegos? Okay, then you're already there, Mr. Hernandez.
We'll keep her there in case there are any questions. What the next item is regarding the interlocal agreement that we have with the Boys and Girls Club that the board approved back on September 2021 for last year with the Boys and Girls Club of San Antonio. The board approved a 1 year with 2 1-year options. Now, what we've seen throughout last year is that, and as many school districts are experiencing staffing shortages and the number of available staff of the Boys and Girls Club to meet our needs of the extended day program. So what the district is asking is to amend the contract that we have with them to allow them to reduce their staffing requirement 25 to 34, which will result in a reduction of the cost of the contract from 305,000 down to 243. Now, be assured that the staff, our staff will be taking steps in order to make sure that the program continues at its full capacity by directly hiring district professional and paraprofessional staff, as well as college students. So basically, what we're asking is the board to allow us to amend the contract that was approved last year and allow them to reduce their staff, reduce the cost. And again, this program is funded with the ACE grant, federal grant, and also with monies, the city, San Antonio after school grant funds that we receive from them.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Any questions for Mr. Hernandez or Ms. Gallegos? I actually do, if I can. Justin, tell me when you're ready. Thank you, sir. So will this give our staff an opportunity to work for this organization after school hours?
They wouldn't be working for Boys and Girls Club. They would be hired through HISD. So it would be just a time and effort, additional timesheet. for them. So like today, Nicole Davis and Danielle Grant Stanfield, the ACE coordinator for EDP, they went out to the different campuses and just to make sure that everything was up and running, they went and they distributed flyers at all the campuses so that they can start recruiting teachers, paraprofessionals, cafeteria workers, bus aides, anyone that's available within the district. Because the idea and the main intent is for us to have professionals on staff, but like Mr. Hernandez just stated, it has been a difficult year, and that's why we are reducing the amount of staffing for Boys and Girls Club, because they've had, you know, a lot of turnover, they've had shortages, and we just didn't want to obligate them with 34 staff members because that is what our RFP wasn't fair to them. So when we came back in July and we negotiated, that's what we came up with. But we're hoping that more of our staff this year will participate and be a part of our after-school programming.
Thank you, Ms. Gallegos. And you answered my second question. So I was gonna say, how many does this require? How many staff? And you said 34, is that it?
We have a 20-to-1 ratio with our staffing, and that's requirement for COSA, for the City of San Antonio grant, and it's also a requirement for the ACE After School Program grant.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me the answer to my question. Any other comments for Ms. Gallegos or Mr. Hernandez on this particular agenda item? Okay, thank you both.
Thank you.
Dr. Salinas, agenda item 16.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam President. On page 30 of your board book, you should have the policy updates and changes recommended by TASB and also recommended by our current departments. So each of these policies that I will go over, every department reviewed it if it pertained to them. And so the first policy is CPC local on records management. And the changes here are really due to management of electronic records, now that we have a lot of electronic records. And this policy would delegate the records management officer the responsibility to develop procedures for the management of electronic records that comply with the district's records control schedules and meet minimum components required by law. On page 30, you'll see a blue section, which is a brand new section. Once this goes to the board on Monday, and hopefully it will be approved. Once it's approved, then we would work together. I would work with Mr. Mora, and we would create administrative procedures to take care of our records management, in particular the electronic records. So that's the first policy.
Any questions or comments for Dr. Salinas? I do, if I can.
Yes,
Justin, tell me when you're ready. Okay, so we already have a records management officer.
Yes, that's our
But-
purchasing manager. That's Mr. Mora.
So Mr. Mora is now going to be the electronic records management officer.
Correct.
Oh, okay, congratulations,
Correct.
Mr. Mora. Okay, I just didn't know if that was going to be an additional position
No, ma'am.
or it was going to move from one job description to a different and better and hopefully easier job. So, okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on this particular change? Okay, Dr. Salinas.
Okay. DMA local is about required staff development. And so annually, the board should review the professional development clearinghouse that's published by the State Board of Educator Certification. We refer to it as SBEC. And you will approve the annual district professional development plan. Typically, that's found in our district improvement plan that the board reviews every year. And this is a new policy.
Any questions for Dr. Salinas on this particular one? Nope. Okay.
Okay, next one we have is EHAA. Oh, no, is it right? Yes, yes, I just did DMA. Okay, EHAA local, which is really about the basic instruction program, what's required at all levels. And so what you'll see here is that there's a whole section added on page 33 where they talked specifically about instruction on prevention of child abuse, family violence, dating violence, and sex trafficking. And it also refers to our School Health Advisory Council that falls under Ms. Gallegos. And then again, procedures that they must follow with regards to human sexuality instruction.
Any comments or questions for Dr. Salinas? I do. Ready, Justin? Dr. Salinas, this is new?
The section is new.
Okay,
The
this-
policy is not new, but the section at the bottom about instruction on prevention of child abuse, family violence, and dating violence and sex trafficking
That's
is
new.
new, that now it involves this School Health Advisory Council, the SHAC.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? Okay, moving on, Dr. Salinas.
Okay, EHB is a brand new policy, and all it says is in accordance with administrative procedures, we will provide regular training opportunities for teachers of students with dyslexia that include new research and practices for educating students with dyslexia. So anything that's new and up to date, we will have to provide that for the teachers, the dyslexia teachers.
Any comments or questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Carrillo.
I do have a question real quick. How early do they get tested for dyslexia?
We are required in kinder to do a screener, and in that screener, one of the things it screens for is dyslexia. So we have all kinders that we have a screener, and we do it in first grade as well. And once a student shows that they have, I guess, some areas of concern, then there'll be further testing.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Mancha.
are we still providing training for the kinder staff? I know that when my wife was there, they had stopped doing the training.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are providing training for all grade levels.
For all pre-kinder and
Yes, sir.
kinder?
Anybody else? Okay, Dr. Salinas, moving on.
Okay, EHBAA is also a new policy. We do have legal policies for this, but this is a new local policy. And when a student transitions from early childhood intervention, they refer to it as ECI, to an early childhood special education service, then the district will have to develop and implement an individual education plan, an IEP, by the child's third birthday.
Any questions for Dr. Salinas on this particular? Nope. Okay, Dr. Salinas, moving on.
Okay, the next one is on GT students, EHBB. And we have minimal changes to this policy. The biggest changes on page 38, where we used to have a requirement where we had to report to TEA the funding that we use to implement the district's gifted and talented program. We no longer have to do that. And so that has been striked out.
Any questions or comments? So everything stays the same, except we no longer have to report it to TA.
Yes, ma'am.
I am sorry, Justin, I apologize. Any questions or comments on this particular? No? Okay, Dr. Salinas?
Okay, have a couple more. EIF is about graduation, and you will see one strike through on page 39. And so right now, the district shall require 3 credits of math to be earned during grades 9 through 12. And then you'll see that we also had to add how we can apply for financial aid. And so you'll see that in blue as an addition on page 39 and 40.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Moreno.
Yeah, on this one, Dr. Salinas, I know what's crossed out as the high school, because I know, I don't know how it aligns, but I know some of our kids take like algebra in 8th grade. So is that not counting or what's
Thank you,
going-
sir. It is actually, instead of 9 through 12, it should say 8 through 12. And so we will make that change prior to Monday.
Okay, good. Because, and I know even some cases we even thought about maybe letting 7th graders, get to that point. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? And this is just for math, correct? The math requirement?
Yes, the 3 credits. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Salinas. Moving on.
Yep, FFBA, almost there. Crisis intervention, trauma informed care. And what you will see here is that this is based on the regular session, actually Senate Bill 1267. And we require training on trauma informed care. We have to provide that as part of our professional development policy. And that's what the change that you'll see there.
Any questions or comments? This is not new, Dr. Salinas. I am sorry, Justin. I apologize. Thank you.
Yes and no. So the state now has a clearinghouse that does have like safety trainings that are required. And that's what you'll have to now approve through our district improvement plan. But we've always had required trainings. So they're just now putting it into policy.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, because I thought I know we've had this before, but now it's part of policy.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Okay, moving on to the last one, Dr. Salinas?
Last
Okay.
one. Okay. Student welfare, freedom from discrimination, harassment, and retaliation. Big change here is that now we must immediately notify a parent of a student identified as the alleged victim or perpetrator for anyone who's reporting dating violence. So dating violence is not tolerated. It also provides if you'll see in blue on page 42, it also provides a definition of discrimination again. They've added that there and called this just statement of non-discrimination. So they took it from the top, moved it down a section. So you'll see the strikeout in red on page 42 and then the addition in blue.
Any questions or comments for Dr. Salinas? Okay, thank you, Dr. Salinas.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 17, Ms. Mirna Martinez.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Soto. I have the next two items. The first one, we will request to renew our contract with Frontline Education for time and attendance and absence and substitute management system. Frontline Education is a leading provider of workforce management and human capital management solutions. Now, Harlandale has used various modules of the Frontline Education solution for several years. The time and attendance module provides multiple options for our employees or administrators to enter time. Employees can clock in via kiosk directly from their computer using one of the many Chromebooks that have been placed in schools and departments. We currently have over 1,200 employees that swipe in and out daily. Harlandale also uses Frontline Absence Management System. All employees schedule absences or request time off via the absence and substitute management system by utilizing either the website or on the phone. Our teachers use this program to schedule substitutes when they're going to be out. Human Resources and Payroll use it to track time off and available leave for our employees. Funding for the Frontline Education Annual Maintenance Agreement comes from the district's general budgeted fund, and this annual maintenance agreement includes licensing for each user, technical support, and any firmware upgrades that may occur throughout the year.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Any questions or comments? I do. Justin, tell me when you're ready, Justin. Thank you. Ms. Martinez, how long have we had a contract with Frontline Education?
We've been, Frontline is also used for special education. So Ms. Della Taylor will be here and ask for something eventually, she'll need her renewal. So we've used it for several years, but we started using the time and attendance about 2 years ago. So this will be, I think we're starting our third year. Prior to that, we were using, we were using Kronos.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Any questions or comments for Ms. Martinez? Okay, agenda item 18.
Yes, here we will request to renew our contract with Intex Southwest for the purchase of FortiClient. This is a firewall service for both our network operating center and our disaster recovery site. So there are two different locations. A firewall is considered the first line of defense in protecting data and information. It's the solution designed to prevent unauthorized access and or unauthorized users from gaining access into our district's network. All the messages that enter or leave the intranet will pass through the firewall, which examine each message and blocks those that do not meet the specified security criteria. In a continual effort to increase network capacity in our schools, the district created a second network and split the internet services. This plan required a firewall solution that protected both the network centers at two locations and ensured that student privacy and data security exists. The recommended bundle solution provides 24/7 protection. The bundle includes application control, web filtering, anti-spam services, outbreak protection, email content, disarm and reconstruction, and 24/7 comprehensive support with advanced hardware and firmware upgrades. The district is seeking to renew our existing contract in support of the network firewall solution. Funding for the Forti-Client annual maintenance agreement will come from the district's general budgeted fund.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Any questions or comments? I do. So, Ms. Martinez, we already use Intech Southwest for other purposes.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we're gonna renew this contract so that we can now purchase an additional service from them. That would be the firewall services?
No, we bought the firewall 3 years ago. And so this is a renewal for support of that firewall. And we bought it from them. They installed it. They supported us for the past 3 years. So this is just a renewal for the next 3 years. And we went 3 years because if I go year to year, it costs more. So by doing 3 years, we saved over $8,000 in the final cost. And then in 3 years, we'll come back and ask for a new firewall. So.
Okay, thank you. So we're already using them and we already have this in place. We're just renewing those services to continue for another 3 years.
Correct. And they're very familiar with our system. So we're very comfortable going with
I
them.
was gonna ask you, how have they been doing the last 3 years?
They're excellent. They
Perfect,
are excellent.
perfect. Thank you so much. Any questions or comments for Ms. Martinez? Okay, thank you, Ms. Martinez.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 19. Mr. Soto, who's gonna present on that?
Madam Chair, Board of Trustees, at this time, we're going to bring up a team with Mr. Forestier, Dr. Hinojosa's team, Corporal Olivares, and Chief Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Soto. Dr. Hinojosa, you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I was gonna wondering who's gonna start.
Yeah,
Go
no,
ahead.
I'll start. So Madam Chair and members of the board, so tonight we'd like to present Harlandale Independent School District School Safety Action Steps. And it's been a collaborative effort, as Mr. Soto mentioned, with the individuals that were called out, and we'll go over that their specific roles here in just a bit. So back in the beginning of June, Governor Abbott charged the Texas Education Agency and also the Texas School Safety Center with certain requirements and guidelines and policies and procedures now that we're going to be implemented into schools. As Mr. Soto mentioned, it was this entire process, if you were in your board book from page 53 to 58, it really spells out the efforts that the entire team has really put together over this last to get in preparation to begin the school year. It's again not only did the state or the governor's charge wasn't just to make the school safe, but also to provide a way to track and audit. And there's a lot of data collection that's required now. And then also, again, not just from the interior and exterior perimeter safety. It also created a way to be able to assess not just threats, but also to provide guidelines in terms of being able to, catch those early and then be able to implement procedures to be able to provide assistance for those individuals. So again, over the summer, or even before school ended, Chief Hernandez got his mobilized his police department, and they before we even headed out for the school year, they trained through Stop the Bleed over 1,400 of our employees. They've been training since we got back for our professional development to make sure that ensure that all of the requirements for our employees, that they've been able to adhere to the state's requirements. As I mentioned earlier, so it's a lot of data collection. So now Mr. Forestier is emergency management officer. So he is charged with that really important task of making sure that he tracks and collects the data that we're going to need to be able to provide for the state. He works alongside very closely with Corporal Olivares. They, as far as being able to go into the campuses, continue to assess, make sure that all the drills and we're up to a par where we need to be in terms of being able to provide a safe environment, a safe learning environment for our students. And then they also work along with Ms. Gallegos to be able to make sure that we are inputting that information and collecting it in an orderly fashion. So again, as I mentioned, pages 53 to 58 kind of go over our state requirements of what we're asked to do as a local education agency in terms of the to be able to do drills, to be able to monitor, to be able to track and continue to collect all the data that we need. Part of that requirement to the state, we've been asked to, every school district's been asked to put together a support school program team. And on page 58, you'll see a very inclusive list of individuals that are on this committee. This committee's already met. We've met twice informally. I think we have our next meeting scheduled for later this month. And so at that point, we go over the school district's emergency operation plans, make sure that we review audit information, which that audit information that we conducted will be shared with the board on Monday. But again, it's an ongoing, and it's efforts that, again, through a collaborative nature, that we continue to work towards to make sure that we comply. Beginning on page 59 and through the rest of the pages for this particular presentation, it discusses the active threat annex. The active threat annex is really a multi-tiered system, but again, it's a collaborative effort. It's actually 3 tiers. There's a tier that is involved, it's strictly just for our police department with an incident command officer, and that would be our police chief, Chief Hernandez, and then he disseminates through his staff, I guess, the modular system as far as who's going to communicate with each other. So we have that one. And then the second tier of that, we also have a district level part of that multi-tier system. We have a district level group or cohort. And then we also have a campus-based cohort. And the purpose of those, again, is there's some overlap, but all the 3 teams, regardless if it's with a police level, if it's at the district level or at the campus level, we all work collaboratively to be able to not only look actively for threats. Okay, so the campus threat assessment team is to meet monthly, and they just review data. So when we have students that fall into have been recommended not just as a threat to others, but also for self-harm, that information is provided to that campus committee. And so they are charged with being able to put in a plan in place to be able to address those needs for that child. So one of the things that the threat assessment annex is not, it's not a way to label a student, and it's not a way to try to mark a student to be able to remove them from school. It's to be able to provide the services that they need in order to make sure that, again, that they're not a threat to others and they're not a self-threat as well. The good thing about the overlap in those committees is that if a campus feels like they don't have the necessary means to provide the services for those students, they can reach out to one of the at the district level or at the police level. So it's really going to be all 3 of those levels in that multi-tier system working together to not just label the student, but also to make sure that we provide a safe environment, but then get the student the help that they may need in order to make sure that we prevent anything from happening. So that's a general overview of our safety plan.
Thank you, Dr. Hinojosa. Any questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Moreno.
Yeah, so I just wanted to commend you guys. I know I've shared with Dr. Hinojosa, Chief Hernandez, Corporal Olivares, Coach Forestier. That's a tough task to have to compile that data as well. But just commend you guys for being proactive. I know a lot of our agencies are more reactive, and a lot of these safeguards and measures have already been in place. And so you guys really didn't have to do too much other than to refine them and kind of tweak them to the best needed or what's suited now, and kind of whatever requirement that the state wants, because it's a little bit more I guess under scrutiny just based off of the situations that we've had. But with that being said, I mean, I know we do this already. I mean, obviously I'm the person in charge of my campus when it comes to threat assessment. A lot of it falls on the campus, and to me, it's a little frustrating at times, because I feel some of the times it's like we're focused on curriculum and instruction and, safety related to discipline, of kids. And, there's other things that are kind of being thrown our way. How is it going to impact the campus level in terms, because I know one thing that we don't have the luxury is we don't have the luxury of having Coach Forestier as that emergency management officer. So what is it that it's going to look like to kind of not put so much extra, work on, because all this stuff's already done on the campus level. What's going to be done so that they don't have to feel like, man, there's, obviously we want to take care of what's most important, which is kids. But I mean, also there's just so much more layers added to what a teacher has to do and what an administrator has to do.
Yes, sir. And that's a great point. So if you were to look on page 66 in your board book, because there is so much more added onto every teacher, the support team on the campus, the individuals that you see as with an asterisk at the beginning, those are the required individuals that have to be on the support team for every campus. If for some reason that particular campus does not have that person, then that's where the overlap of that multi-tiered system will come in. So then they'll reach out to the district level, and whether it's the student support services or through the care center. And so whatever it is that the campus feels like they're deficient in, they'll reach out to that district level committee, and then that committee will be able to reach out and then provide that service at that campus.
And do you know where are they having to submit the data to? Or is it just like because I know with us it's Navigate, Prepared, which I think we have here as well. So I think every district utilizes it. So
I think for us at the previous board meeting, there was the previous board meeting when the Board of Trustees approved that smart data as a program for the district. And so the committees will be inputting that information in there. So we will still use a tracking service in terms of kind of similar to Navigate, as you mentioned, but in terms of specifically, I guess being able to, I hate to use the word track, but able to monitor the students that will fall in that or that a campus feels that they would fall in that category or are at risk, that data will be input into that particular system, that smart data. And so then the beauty of that for us is if we do have mobility where a student is going to go from one campus to another, if from a mobility standpoint, they'll be able to still access that even if they go to a neighboring campus.
So it's all pretty user friendly to toggle through it and utilize it and implement to input all that information, right?
Yes, sir. And it is going to be a new system for the district, but that's where the training will take place in order to be able to prepare them for that.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you guys for doing the hard work.
Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair,
Ms. Limon, yes.
I want to thank Chief and Marco Olivares for saying the safety, and then of course, Ms. Gallegos. It's a lot of work for all of you, Dr. Hinojosa, and of course, all your staff. I'm part of that committee meeting, and having all these great people around me is just, put all this information it's a lot. It was a lot for me, and I haven't started my test yet, so I'm going to get started on that. But I thank you, and I think this is going to be a big need in our district, even though we already advanced in a lot of these needs that we already implemented in our district. It's just, like Mr. Moreno said, just tweaking a little here and there. And I can't believe how ahead we already are, and we are ahead. So thank you, sir, and I thank everybody for being part of this great committee, because I think it's going to be, our community is going to like this and going to know that we are safe and that we're doing good in our district. So thank you, guys. I thank you very much.
Anybody else? I'll just echo what Mr. Moreno and Ms. Limon said. We already had a safety plan in place to keep our students safe and our staff. We are just upping up the game. And so I want to make sure that our community understands this isn't something that we're doing right now. This is something we've always been doing. We're just enhancing it so that we can be better at safety for all of us in this district. So thank you very much for that. Moving on. Oh, any other questions or comments? No? Okay. So moving on to agenda item 20. Dr. Hinojosa?
Yes, ma'am. This particular item, we'd like to present information regarding the Baga Center. We had two of the motors that are critical to the air conditioning system of the Baga Center go down earlier in the summer. After evaluating them, it was the two motors that went out, and in order to replace them, with the cost of everything going up and supply chain and everything else that's been going on with the economy, the price necessitated us to bring it before the board. But it has impacted the professional development services that we provide there in that building. And then now that school started, would also impact Frank the Head Academy, who uses the facility for a gym. So we would like to on Monday recommend that we approve the purchase of those two motors to be able to get the HVAC system back and running at the Baga Center.
Thank you, Dr. Hinojosa. Any questions or comments? I actually do. Justin, tell me when you're ready. Dr. Hinojosa, so when will we have air conditioning?
In talking to the HVAC foreman, Mr. Espinoza, as soon as we get the board approval and the go ahead to be able to move forward, it should be been within a week or two.
Okay. And my second question is, what are we doing now, right now?
Uh,
How are
right-
we trying to keep cool?
We're not using that facility currently. That's why we had to reschedule some of the trainings and some of the professional development we typically use at that facility. We had to reschedule and use other facilities in the district.
I know you mentioned Frank Tejeda, that is going to affect that too.
Yes, ma'am. but
So we
Go
started
ahead.
school today?
We started school today, so they're having to make alternate arrangements for physical education.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Okay, moving on to agenda item 21, Dr. Hinojosa.
Yes, ma'am. This particular item, we're proud to report that this is we'll be requesting on Monday, the final payment for the Gillette Foundation project. That has been kind of an ongoing, process. I did include in your board book, starting on page 73, some images and some pictures as far as some of the work and just kind of comparing where the facility was at and what the facility looks at now. So on page 73, if you look, that's the backside of Gillette. That really goes in line with picture on page 74. So if you see on page 74, that's where some vents were put all around the school. That's to help the air circulation to go underneath the school. If you look on page 75, that's just a comparison of the bottom picture, image 4 is what it used to look like as far as how much dirt had built up underneath the foundation. And then you can see on image 3, you can see where that ring around each of the columns where it was at. That's how much dirt they actually had to move from underneath the foundation before they were able to settle it. If you look on the next page, on page 76, it's just another image showing similar how much space there is underneath. You can see we actually did a walkthrough underneath that, and you can actually, before you would have to army crawl practically to go through there. But with the amount of dirt that they were able to move before they stabilized the foundation, now you could actually walk underneath. And so the final image, just as another on page 77, 7 and 8 is just really showing some of those air vents that they were to be able to implement to be able to make sure that airflow was maintained underneath the facility. So for this particular item, it's board policy that we take the final payments of the individual or the organizations and the firms that are involved, the construction company. So we would be requesting a final payment of $10,000 to DL Bandy Constructors and also a little over $5,000 to Lundy and Frankie Engineering for the completion of that project.
Thank you, Dr. Hinojosa. Any questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms.
So
Limon.
there's going to be a total of 15?
Combined, yes, ma'am. The final pay up, yes, ma'am. Then as I believe I put in HH, so overall it was budgeted at $3.2 million, but it came under budget at 2.9 million.
Great. And I applaud you, Mr. Soto and Dr. Hinojosa. This has been an agenda, I don't know how many times, to try to work on this project and never got approved. And I thank you for finally doing this project and completing it, and especially now since school started. So I thank you very much, Mr. Soto and Dr. Hinojosa.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I actually do have a comment. I'm full of comments today. I expect rain. Now I need the rain to make sure this is working correctly. So let us know if you can, the first sign of a good rain, let us know how this project is dealing with that, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to see.
Hopefully we'll have the rain. and we'll
Yes,
report back.
hopefully
Yes,
we'll
ma'am.
have the rain. Yes. So thank you so much for that. Moving on to agenda item number 22, Dr. Hinojosa.
Yes, ma'am. So this particular item would be recommending to the Board of Trustees that we replace the wooden planks at Harlandale High School at the stadium. I think that's kind of been an ongoing issue. It's been an ongoing expense that every year we have to replace the wooden planks. I believe in 2019 was the year that, if I'm not mistaken, that the stadium at McCollum was converted to aluminum bleachers. And so this particular item would be asking for the approval of using the maintenance tax notes, monies to be able to replace the wood planks, to be able to replace them and put aluminum planks in its place.
Thank you, Dr. Hinojosa. Any comments or questions?
On that, if I may, Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Moreno.
with that, it's I'm kind of excited because, you know, being able to have our kids, whether it's on a Thursday or Saturday or Tuesday or Wednesday, being able to utilize that, because I know that deterred a lot of people from coming to those events, especially in addition with the heat. But it is exciting because when you go to any of our high schools, whether it's after 5 o'clock or after everyone's done practicing, you see them actually utilizing our facilities. And so perhaps this can encourage, you know, more emphasis on our health and wellness for our community. I'm going to be really excited to see some community members going out there and running bleachers. That'd be pretty nice, and not have to worry about breaking or, you know, breaking a board and stuff. So
Yes, sir. It
maybe even
also
us
served
as
well
well.
for the night pep rally.
Oh,
That
even
was
better,
always an
yeah.
issue.
So great stuff, and looking forward to it. Thank you, guys.
So and I'm sorry, any more questions or comments? No? Okay, I actually do have a question. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Carrillo, go ahead. You had a question?
I was just gonna ask the timing. What is the timing on the bleachers?
And so once we we're able to notify the company of the approval, then it'll be about a 6 weeks lead time to be able to get the materials in. That's the last conversation we had. So at that point in time, they'll mobilize and they'll come in. But I can contact the company just to get some a firmer time, because that discussion was a few months ago.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Limon.
just, you know, any luck if we be using it this year?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
that was the conversation and that was the urgency to try to bring it to the board. So that's a conversation. I can provide more information on Monday.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir.
Any other comments or questions? I'm sorry, go ahead, Justin. So 6 weeks, more or less, for us to get the materials that we need and for them to start on the project.
The last conversation we had, yes, ma'am. Mhm.
And then once they do that, could you update us as to how long it'll take to
Yeah,
finish the
Absolutely. I
project?
can include that on HH.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Hinojosa. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments? No? Mr. Moreno? No? Okay. So moving on to agenda item 23.
Yes, Madam Chair. No,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So because we're not all present here today as far as the board, and I would like for all of us to be present, because it's only fair, I move to table agenda item 23A for our next special call meeting, which would be August the 24th. Is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Is August 24th okay, that date, Mr.? Okay, yes. So I made a motion, Ms. Limon has made a second. I will go for the vote now. Ms. Ortiz, yay or nay to move to table agenda item 23A to our special call meeting that's already scheduled for August 24th?
Yay.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Mr. Moreno, yay or nay?
yeah, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Mancha, yay or nay? Thank you, sir. Ms. Carrillo, yay or nay?
Yay.
Thank you. Ms. Limon, yay or nay?
Yay.
Thank you. And myself, yay. So motion carries. We are moving agenda item 23A to our next special call meeting of August 24th, 2022. Our next agenda item is to adjourn. But before we do that, are there any comments or statements that anybody would like to make?
Yes,
Mr.
Madam
Soto?
Chair. I just want to let the Board of Trustees and the HISD family, just driving around campuses, I was able to hit about 95% of all our campuses. And the excitement and the joy of seeing the children's smiles and the teachers high-fiving them, There was tons of energy. Cabinet was out and about in quadrants. And it looked like the police was out there and it looked like traffic went pretty smooth for it being a first day. I'll tell you what, some of our elementaries, they were already all in the classrooms before even the bell rang. So the parents did an outstanding job of getting there early and getting their child to school safely. So it was a great first day here at Harlandale ISD.
Thank you, Mr. Soto. So happy to hear that. Anybody else? I actually, go ahead, Ms. Ortiz. You know, I'm going to take this opportunity because this is a work session and because we are with staff who is bringing us information and educating us, educating the board. We have amazing teachers here and faculty and staff. We have amazing all-around employees here at Harlandale. This district can't be successful with only one person leading. And I know we have a great leader in Mr. Soto, but he has surrounded himself with you all who help him be better. You know, our focus is student success, and we can't achieve that by one person walking alone on that path. And I am so happy and excited for this new school year because I see the energy in the faculty, in the staff, you know, from our maintenance department, from our child nutrition, from our paraprofessionals, principals, and all the staff and departments in between. It is such a good way to start this new year. And I thank everybody for putting so much hard work into this school year, even before it started, that I know in my heart, this is going to be one of the best years Harlandale has. And I say that because we're going to have student success. We're going to be fruitful. We're going to be successful. And you're right, Mr. Soto, those kids were, oh my God, they were so ready to start. And I appreciate that. Mr. Soto can't do it alone, nor we expect him to, but he has surrounded himself with excellent staff. Everybody who is employed by Harlandale ISD is family for a reason. And they're family because they have the same vision that we all do, student success. So I wish you all the best, but you all are off to a great, great start. Every single department, every single individual that works in this district is already doing amazing things. So I appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Ortiz?
Yes, just really quick. When we're thinking about success, and yes, thank you so much to the staff members, but I wanted to say the Harlandale Independent School District is hosting a volleyball tournament this weekend, and I wish much success to McCollum and Harlandale. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Carrillo, you want to take us
Madam
home?
Chair, yes, ma'am. I move to adjourn.
Is there a second on Ms. Carrillo's motion?
I'll second.
Okay, I will take the vote. Ms. Carrillo, yay or nay?
Yay.
Thank you. Ms. Limon, yay or nay?
Yay.
Mr. Moreno, yay or nay?
Yay, ma'am.
Mr. Mancha, yay or nay? Yay. Thank you. Ms. Ortiz, yay or nay?
Yay.
Myself, yay. It is 7:53. Tonight's meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Stay safe.